Hello everyone. Welcome to this video, or perhaps series of videos, where we take our first deep dive into the most advanced constitution ever written. You will learn how and why countries are founded, two laws, the law of thought and the law of nations, and see how we weave them together, gain insights about yourself, the people around you, and the reality in which we exist. Most importantly, you will finally see a hopeful and inspiring path forward for leaving tyranny behind. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Triunians, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Charter of Triunnia, Genesis Codex. Our agenda for this video is as follows. We'll go over the motivations for this codex, the why and the what it is, and I'll introduce its structure. We'll explore the big ideas that go into the construction of this codex so that you have a background in what it's trying to accomplish. After that, we'll look at each section of the codex in detail. Hello, everyone. It's been several years since I posted an update. I've been head down, hard at work, working on the fundamentals of Triunia. And I'm here to share with you completion of some of that work. Namely, the Genesis Codex, which is the first book of our charter, is done. And in this video, I'm going to present that to you. Also, our membership program is almost done. There's just one more leg to do of the end-to-end encryption system, and then it can be deployed for production use. So I hope to be able to show that later this year. For those of you who are new to the channel, this project is about building a new society from scratch. You'll see what goes into self-determination, how countries are built, and for me, it's not enough to simply make a new country. We got to solve a problem. We got to make sure the problem of planetary tyranny never happens again. So we have triune democracy as our governmental system, and that is being deployed as part of the creation of this new society. And so that's how we make sure this never happens again. That's the solution to the problem of tyranny. And so this project is about birthing that solution into reality. Before we begin, let's just answer why and what this is. Firstly, why? Why write a constitution for a new country? Have you seen how the world is today? That's why. Humanity is on a very dark path. Nations are founded for their people, not economies, not big tech, not big pharma, not business. They are for the people first. You know this, and you know the present ways don't work anymore. What you'll see in this video is a starting point for how we can right the ship. Here's my proposal. We build a new country with a new system based on the very best knowledge and lessons learned from history, and which is designed to thwart infiltration and corruption. We set a new and higher baseline and let that become the standard. In the process, the old systems fall away from obsolescence and lack of interest. That is how we change the world. That is how we right the ship, and that is how we win, by letting nature's laws do the work for us. Now for the what. The Charter of Triunnia is a charter, not technically a constitution. Constitutions have the general sense of being the framework documents for a country, but they also have an implicit connotation of being associated with bankruptcies. A constitutor is someone who takes on the responsibility for paying someone else's debt. We might say that a constitutor presides over the bankruptcy for which he or she is responsible. If you've researched how nations work, a lot of them appear to be bankrupt. The words for constitution and constitutor are too similar for me to be comfortable with them. Constitutions are sometimes also written by committee or convention, while charters are written from a position above the thing that they are for and are handed down. Triunia's charter is way too advanced to be written by a committee or convention. It is the codified writings that describe a wholly defined construct, and as the founder and paragon of that construct, of Triunia, it is being developed by me and handed down to the people, specifically the future people of Triunia. Of course, you are welcome to comment on it and influence its development, but the initial design is something that only a paragon of Triunia has the rather unique skill set to do. Whether you are a member of Triunia or not, may it guide you and your descendants well through the next millennium and beyond. So we're here on the Triunia homepage, and you can access the charter through two ways, either clicking the charter button on the landing page or through the menu, Triunia, Charter of Triunia. And there's two ways you can look at the charter. You can look at it through the source code. The charter is actually available. Its source code is available on the internet, and you can browse it interactively. Here it is. And we just click on the links. You can see the files up above and the content below, and you can click on the links and interact with the project and see the actual laws that are there. So in this video, in addition to showing you the Charter of Triunia, you'll get to learn things like what a triune self is. This is a soul diagram in English. That's going to be super useful, and it's a very advanced one too. It shows you what you are and how you work. The desire hierarchy over here is another one, and there's an idea that this might be the tree of knowledge. This is a very powerful thing, very powerful concept to use if you know what it is and how to use it effectively. So we'll go over that. You'll learn about, speaking of how and why countries are founded, insanity is the normal condition on this planet. It's why people leave their countries and go found new countries, because they recognize that everybody's insane where they currently are. And so the reason this occurs is because the reality is it's also like it's the free will universe, but it's also known as the realm of confusion. And so it's very easy for people to become confused, and therefore insanity occurs naturally, systematically as a consequence of that. And so you got to be very careful not to allow that to occur. And a bunch of other things, the dangers, various dangers that are coming up in the next era, and how we can deal with them. But I'm going to show you the PDF document. So for the video, so we'll click on the other link over here, and this brings us to PDF, the Charter of Triunia. I do have pre-recorded audio as well that go over some of the finer points in this recording, which will probably be deployed as a series of multiple videos instead of just one giant video. Yeah, I'm just going to read the codex for you and give you additional explanatory notes. I'm going to give you additional insight into what it is about. The Charter of Triunia, Genesis Codex, here we go. The Charter of Triunia is the foundational document that defines Triunia. It consists of 4 uplifting and healing codices: Genesis, Perdition, Triune Democracy, and Triunia, which observe, educate, and set the laws by which Triunia operates to build a peaceful and thriving society as close to universal law as possible. The 4 codices are Genesis, which weaves 2 primary laws, the law of thought and the law of nations, together with a multidisciplinary approach to create a solid foundation upon which to build a peaceful and thriving society. The Perdition Codex establishes perdition as the end result of a serious crime against humanity and provides the means to detect, cure, and safeguard against it. I said earlier that insanity was the normal condition. That means part of that is doing insane things like treating a mental paradigm, like a thought, as though it were a physical object. That's an error in thinking, and that can lead to perdition. So we'll be covering that in the Perdition Codex, those kinds of things. Number 3 is the Triune Democracy Codex, which codifies the triune democratic system of government and its procedures. The Triune Democracy is all over our website. It's also described on triunedemocracy.info, which is the same site but without the branding. And then this codex codifies it, so you don't even need them. You just get it. And it's done as law so that whoever is building the society can just build it according to the law there. And of course, the Triunnia Codex, which defines the sovereign society of Triunia itself and anchors it in law. That will contain anything identifying as specific to Triunia, such as the character tests in government, how exactly we're going to use Triune democracy, anything that's specific to Triunia, how its legal system works, how its economy works, how certain aspects of its culture would work, things that are specific to Triunia are in the Triunia Codex. Everything else in Genesis Perdition and Triune Democracy, those can be used by other societies. So things that are specific to Triunia are not in there. And you can just borrow that knowledge and use it for your own society, and that's perfectly okay. The Genesis Codex in particular, you can use this if you're building a society, you can use this as the foundation for your society. That's allowed. And I encourage you to do it. That will give you an upgrade to your new society, or if you have an existing society, you can upgrade your country with this. But of course, installing this in an existing country is a revolutionary act, and one does not simply do that. Like that, those are people's livelihoods at stake there. So it's for me, the peaceful path is to make a new society. Plus, there's the fact this is all experimental, and why take the risk? Well, I mean, the risk is worth taking, but like we can build a new society that's optimized for these paradigms, and the old ones, like they fall away through obsolescence if they're not working. Any society that's not working will just fall away through obsolescence. And so you get what's effectively the same people in a different organization, and all is well. That would be a more peaceful, graceful transition. And that's one way that things could happen as well. But for now, this is self-determination. We build a new society, and this is our constitution, the first part of it. The Charter of Triunnia consists of 4 books. Each book builds upon the book that came before. The books are Genesis Codex, Perdition Codex, Triune Democracy Codex, and Triunnia Codex. This is the Genesis Codex. It is called Genesis because it lays out what must come first before everything else. All other foundational country laws are built upon this codex. Genesis puts in codex form the most pertinent recognitions about how our reality works. These recognitions are important so that we are aware of them and don't make unnecessary mistakes individually and as a society. Sometimes those mistakes are very dangerous, and when they compound, that can be disastrous for a society. It is much like the Bible's Genesis in that regard. That Genesis is also a book of law that sets the foundation upon which to build the laws of a nation. It also recognizes how reality works so that their people may be guided safely through time. The Genesis Codex follows a similar goal but is very different in its implementation. It is written for a modern audience and includes much more advanced concepts so that humanity can advance forward. Okay, so Markdown, this is specifically if you're looking at the code on Git. The charter is written in a lightweight markup language known as Markdown. Markdown was chosen because it's easy to read and edit, has minimal formatting conventions, and changes will be easy to see and track in version control software. And that's why you can look at the code. Not only can you look at the code, but you can also look at all the changes that were made to it over time. And that is extremely important when it comes to tracking law and changes in law, as well as who made the changes. Markdown can be viewed through a renderer, which this website has built in, referring to Git or source control software, allowing the charter to be interactively viewed directly from its source. And 2 Markdown extensions are required to properly view the charter in a renderer. Markdown Extended, which has the admonitions, the triple exclamation point syntax if you were to look at the code, and Markdown Preview Mermaid support, because there are diagrams that are defined in code but are actually rendered as diagrams. So Markdown is the raw source of the charter. It gets rendered into PDF by converting the Markdown into PDF, styling it in ways that are required. Git will do it. I use Visual Studio Code to write the charter, and there's a preview in there with those extensions in it. But this PDF that you are seeing, we built our own custom renderer to be able to render it effectively here because there are many converters out there, but none of them have the specific extensions that I need. It's the combination of the admonitions one and the mermaid. I need both of them to be able to do this effectively. So we have our own custom renderer. And as that project evolves, this codex will get prettier as well, more beautiful. And it should be beautiful. So here we are, Genesis Codex. Whereas lawmaking is an act of programming reality, and such acts must be performed with the greatest of respect for every being. That's a big statement, and it's a very important statement. Programming reality and great respect for every being are two major themes that run through this codex. We're not simply writing law, we are programming a reality for the people who are going to be within it. And that's a huge responsibility. It has to be done with great respect for everyone. How do you manage a reality in such a way that you don't cause harm? We're setting up for leadership without harm and very strategic, more enlightened leadership. One of the major themes in the Genesis Codex is having great respect for every being. This will appear throughout the recognitions and additional context notes that are written, along with the general presentation and manner of the Codex. It recognizes thoughts as beings and encourages you to be respectful of them, which is consistent with being respectful of every being in your care. It acknowledges the people whose work the Codex is built upon and the people who will contribute to it in the future. This great respect is important in order to encourage our people to be more conscious in their thinking and interactions with others. It's important for peace and happiness. It is important so that when they write law or craft their own realities, they are taking proper care of the people who are in their sphere of responsibility. How a nation behaves is a lot like how an individual behaves. If we cannot even figure out respect person to person, what hope does a nation have? Nations behave like individuals. The only difference is scale. Or said another way, if it doesn't work in the atomic case, it will not work at scale. And respect is one of those core operations that help ensure peaceful behavior that scales well. It is a systems concern where the system is the civilizational system of any society that adopts this codex. Now, this is just a theme of the codex. You personally do not have to be respectful if you don't want to. This does not apply to you anyway. And even if it did, respect cannot be enforced because to do so is itself disrespectful. Reckless actions like that, whether they be an edict or a misguided opinion of authority, can cause very significant injuries to the people psychologically and the society politically. We want to be very careful not to cause injury to our people and nation, so developing this idea of great respect and imbuing it in the Genesis Codex is one way to develop a culture that practices leadership without harm. And so this opening statement is meant to highlight the care that must be required when writing law in Triunnia or anywhere else. And so this is the foundation of the Genesis Codex. Now we have the table of contents. Preliminaries describe what must be known in order to work with and understand this codex. It has the rules of construction and the sources of law. And then definitions. This section lists and defines all definitions from all sources that are relevant to this codex. And we get definitions from two major sources, thinking and destiny, and the law of nations. And then there's some additional definitions that we've defined as well. Taxonomies is something new the Genesis Codex offers that I don't think anybody else does, any other society does. They describe the structure of ourselves and our reality. In particular, they're all about diagrams. They map out the terrain and show it to you in a diagram. We work with an information-first theory of the universe in Triunnia. Abstract concepts can be very hard to get if you don't have a map. So we draw maps for so many different abstract concepts, actually just 5 of them, but we draw maps so that we can understand what we're talking about, and then those maps will become very important. They help us know the territory, and upon that knowledge of knowing the territory, we can then build better law, and those better laws will translate into a better society. Universal law. This section lists immutable universal laws that govern our reality and are relevant to the Codex. The Genesis Codex is all about recognizing how our reality works. It's called Genesis because this recognition of our functional reality is what must come first before we can build on the other laws. Because if we get our recognitions wrong, or if we're ignorant of certain laws that are relevant to our society, then that's going to affect the kind of society that is built, and it could cause you to go off on a tangent. You can miss your mark. And that's the difference between a society that lasts only a few hundred years and a society that lasts thousands of years or more. Gotta get your mark right. And so we have some universal law recognitions there, and then a whole section on even more recognitions that derive from universal laws. These were observed, studied, and patterned, and are stated as a consequence of the operation of their respective law. It is important for a society to know about them in order to work with them effectively and to avoid undesirable outcomes. And so these recognitions are being, property and ownership over yourself and your thoughts, how thoughts exteriorize, or the relation of thoughts and exteriorization. That's a big new thing that we're going to set up to work with in Triunia. Confusion, insanity, of course, which leads into trespasses. And then, of course, there's classes and types of government. These are all formed by the kinds of thinking that the people do. And so when we want to uplift, we want to also upgrade the thinking that's involved there. Basis of society, what goes into founding a society, that's very important. Law, dangers, and then some self-determination things, the ages of reason, discretion, and discernment, self-determination self, and we recognize competencies with the law of thought. And finally, there's a supplemental section, which are miscellaneous features and responsibilities with respect to the Genesis Codex. It is a gift to humanity, first and foremost. There's a procedure for updating it, and then everybody who contributes to it, we want to recognize them. And that list of contributors will be attached to the Codex across time for everyone. And that's an honor that I hope that we can set a standard for, starting with the Codex, but also going to a bunch of other projects in Triunia or anywhere else. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it interesting and inspiring. There is a solution to tyranny. This is it. Your best thinking brought you here. The system's purpose is what it does. It's time for better thinking and a better system. This was just an introductory video into the Genesis Codex. It looks like there are going to be around 10 videos or so in the series, each about an hour long. These are dense videos full of information. There is a lot that is covered at a higher level of understanding, so it might take time for you to digest and understand it. If you read Thinking in Destiny and familiarize yourself with the law of thought ahead of time, that will help aid your understanding of these videos as we are applying that knowledge in the construction of a new country. Recordings are already done. They just have to be edited and polished and posted. And hopefully I can get them out weekly, if not bi-weekly. But subscribe to be notified when they are posted, since there is no regular posting schedule. I'll see you in the next video where we go through the preliminaries and definitions, and then things get interesting.